Hello, everyone. We are Don't
Don't
Mess
mess
with
with
the
the
Mamas,
mamas.
MOMMAS, with our motto, You
You
are
are
the
the
protagonist
protagonist
of
of
your
your
life,
life,
not
not
the
the
victim
victim
of
of
your
your
destiny.
destiny.
Today, we have a special person, not only my wonderful friend of many years, but someone who is always dedicated to the happiness of people. She's spent her whole life doing that in many different capacities. We are welcoming Karen Richardson Dunn. And let me tell you a little bit about her before we ask her first question. Karen Richardson Dunn has worked as a book editor, journalist, writer, environmental activist, hospice chaplain, minister with the United Church of Christ, and well-being counselor and meditation teacher. So much, right? She grew up in and currently resides in North Carolina and has also lived in New York City, London, Edisto Island, and Charleston, South Carolina, and Northumberland, England. I hope I pronounced that right. I don't think I did. Her passions are her two sons, and she's got gorgeous and amazing sons. Creation, especially trees, meditation, running, and she's an amazing runner, and helping others find paths toward healing and thriving. So to start out, that was a mouthful, and she is amazing. Karen, you've accomplished so much in your life and pursued so many various interests and callings. What inspired you to become a well-being counselor? And frankly, we never even heard of a well-being counselor. So tell us what that is and what inspired you.
Well, to answer your first question, a well-being counselor is it's somewhat similar to being a therapist, except we don't go deep into like past issues so much. We're working with the present, the person where they are right now in their life. And our focus is more about changing habits that are harmful, and taking on new ways of being that ensure thriving across all the dimensions of thriving.
Yes.
Um, and my work at the university, we had 8 dimensions of thriving, which I don't even know if I can name all of them. But in my work, I do just try to meet people where they are in terms of what changes they're trying to make, to just enrich their lives so that they have a healthier and more rich and meaningful life on different levels.
Mm.
Um, and my inspiration for doing this work, I was working as an environmental activist, and I started working for a different program at Wake Forest University called the Food, Health, and Ecological Wellbeing Program. And I began to see the intersections between environmental thriving and human thriving in terms of health and well being. And I became really intrigued by that. And I went on to work for a faith based statewide initiative that was focused on promoting health and well being across the state of North Carolina, especially for underserved populations. So I became more and more intrigued by that dimension of human thriving and how it does interact with thriving as a whole, thriving as our planet as a whole. Um, and then in 2020, COVID year, I started actually working with a well-being counselor myself. And she just inspired me so much. And she made me see the changes I wanted to make in my life. And she was just a tremendous help in that. And I thought, oh, I really want to do this too. Instead of working, on a broad statewide level, I wanted to work with people individually. And so I got my certification through Duke Integrative Medicine and then took private clients. And then I started working for Wake Forest University, working with people anywhere between the ages of 18 and 70,
Wow.
students, faculty, and staff.
Amazing. Amazing. And you really see the interconnection between the person and the environment. I mean, you just really get it. And I think Carla is now going to ask you a couple of questions or one question.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to know, could you tell us a little bit about your job's responsibilities?
Yes. So I do three primary things. The first is well-being counseling. I also do meditation classes, which are certainly directly related to that, because I think meditation is a very integral part of well-being. And I also started a program called Men of the Forest, which was to help young men, especially freshmen as they're entering the college scene, to find a way toward belonging, a path toward belonging and growth that didn't necessarily involve the usual joining a fraternity, for instance. Um, so these young men could really find who they are authentically and just to help them get to know themselves, to have a sense of belonging with each other, and also to develop their leadership skills and character as they move out into the world after they graduate.
Mm, mm. Could I ask another question? When it comes down to the meditation, do you find that people, because I used to work with mental health, with people who had dual diagnosis for mental illness and substance abuse.
Oh,
And
wow.
we
Okay.
had such, and it was like, people got rewarded or they got sanctioned in a way. And the program only lasted 6 months, but
Oh,
they spent so much time sanctioning people and, that it would have been more, they would have outstayed their time just being sanctioned instead of moving on.
mhm.
So
What question did you want?
the question, do you find that people, once they meditate, they find the answers within themselves, not something that's put outside of them?
Well, that's a really great question. I think with meditation, people are looking for answers inside of themselves. And I think meditation allows them to go to find a place of peace and equanimity so they can begin to find those answers within themselves. Because if someone is in a place of chaos, inner chaos and confusion, they tend to look outside themselves for the answers, which is, addiction is certainly part of that paradigm. But meditation, I think, allows people to find that quiet space. For some people, it's a very spiritual space. For other people, it's just a way to quiet their minds and to stop that internal dialogue that can be so damaging, especially if they've been traumatized, and so many people have. And just being able to go into that space allows them the ability to connect with that quiet voice within them and which is the authentic self, and to begin to find answers that are coming from who they really are instead of having someone impose that upon them.
I love that. I love that. That's wonderful. So Karen, when we talked a few months ago, you talked about many insights that you gained, many realizations from working with the 18 to the, older folks. What are some of those insights that you see? And you touched upon many of them already, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit what you're really seeing in today's society, especially among our precious youth.
Yeah, so with the young people I worked with, the main issue that was brought into our sessions was loneliness. Um, and it was so interesting to me because there were the freshmen who were coming in who were having a hard time making friends. Um, who would try to reach out to other people to say, "Hey, would you like to go to the football game with me?" And they would just get no response whatsoever. They they just had a hard time finding their people. And of course, what happens with that is they start thinking there's something really wrong with them. And that causes all kinds of issues, like mainly depression. Um, but also, I had, students who were in the most popular sorority on campus who were surrounded by friends, but they realized they weren't being their authentic self in that context. And they had a deep sense of loneliness because they didn't really know who their true friends were, or they were afraid to show who they really were because they had to kind of keep up a social persona. I had students who had been canceled by their friend groups because they said things that they regretted later, usually under the influence of alcohol. Um, there was just simple homesickness and like, who am I outside of the context of the past 18 years of my life? Um, and of course, all of that's exacerbated by social media because they see these images and they think everybody else is doing great. They're look, everyone's having a great time. And, I'm not. So there must be something wrong with me. Um, and, beyond the issue of loneliness, there were other issues as well. There are a lot of students who are dealing with mental health diagnoses, which can also make them feel stigmatized and isolated. Um, and just having to make decisions about their future. There's a lot of, at the university I work for, these kids are all winners in terms of they were the best of the best in their classes in high school, and all of a sudden they have people who are doing better than they are, and they think there's something wrong with them. They're going to fail. They have a lot of parental pressure about who they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to major in and what their future job is supposed to be. So just so many pressures there. And, I did not see a single female student who did not have some form of body dysmorphia. Size zero girls who are just thinking I'm fat, I'm ugly. So just all those pressures. With the older folks, I had people who anywhere from midlife crisis, I'm wanting to get divorced. I've been a professor my whole life, but I'm not happy doing this anymore. I'm worried about my kids and my family, taking care of older parents, and just sort of questioning the meaning of their lives. And then, of course, there were people with problems that were a lot simpler. They just wanted to, have healthier lifestyles and take better care of themselves. And then there were also people struggling with addictions and the mental health, issues too with older adults. So I saw pretty much everything, I guess, in terms of issues.
Wow.
And I just that's like what an amazing mission you have. I'll turn it over to Carla in a sec to ask the next question. We just got a couple more questions to ask you, but before I do, I wanted to just say that we recently got back from a conference in Florida, and at the Fort Lauderdale airport, I was sitting next to a woman who was a child psychologist. And when we started speaking, and I asked her, what are the issues with young people today? And she deals with 8 to 11-year-olds,
Oh, wow.
same exact thing from 8 to 11 years old. So that
Mhm.
was devastating. And I told her about you, that we'll be interviewing you. So it's just so, prevalent. And authentic self, what does that mean before Carla asks you the next question? But can you just talk about what does it mean to have an authentic self?
Well, I think especially with the young people, they're shaped by so many expectations. There's the expectations of their families and their parents. Um, there are the expectations, the university setting is a small world, and there's so many expectations about being successful in terms of grades, in terms of, status, social status. expectations about you need to drink to have fun, and if you don't drink, what's wrong with you? Um, and so it's a very small culture, and it's very intense. And so I think, the students take on identities that come from other people and the expectations those other people have for the students, rather than really looking at themselves and thinking, what, who am I outside of all these expectations, and what do I really want for myself? And I think answering that question is the heart of authenticity. Um, I had one student who was in like the super popular sorority, and she went and did study abroad. And rather than just hanging out with the other students who were doing study abroad, she went and lived with a French family. And all of a sudden, she's like, wow, all of these different thoughts started coming to her about who she really was outside of the normal context. And she came back from that and she just felt at a loss because all of a sudden she's like, well, I'm not sure these people are my friends.
Wow.
And I'm not sure if this is a group I want to be a part of because it doesn't really fit with who I believe I really am. And she started doing some very brave work about standing up for what she really thought and believed. And it was really hard for her, but I just saw her sort of bloom into who she really was. And that did take so much courage in that context because there's so much pushback. Because suddenly she wasn't just fitting the normal social paradigm there. She was really saying what she believed and making different choices. So I use that as an example about what an authentic self can look like.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. That's so clear. And then Carla is going to ask you a question.
I want to ask you two questions. One, what's your hope for the future? And two, what encouragement can you give to today's youth?
Well, I think these young people themselves are the hope for the future. I mean, they are one thing that I do see as a real positive is they have a kind of emotional vocabulary that when I was growing up, we did not possess. Like they are so much more attuned to trauma. Um, they're so much more attuned to mental health diagnoses. They have so many more resources than when I was growing up. Um, and so that makes me hopeful that they just have a vocabulary and insight that I don't think that we had when I was growing up. And also, they're just so bright and creative and they know what they're up against. I mean, we've got this social media, AI, climate change, such a chaotic world right now. But yet they just keep going and they still have their dreams. And their dream is for something better than what we have. And so that gives me hope. Um, and in terms of inspiration, the first thing I would say to young people is you're not alone. Um, I've had so many students come in, they think they're the only person on campus who's lonely or it's not fitting in, or they think they're the only person who has a diagnosis of OCD or ADHD. And when I say, well, actually, I see a lot of people who have the same issues that you do, and they can't believe it because they think, oh, I just thought it was just me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think just they're being able to connect with other people and know that it's not just them who's struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the other thing, there's the old Buddhist saying, no mud, no lotus.
Yes.
And
Perfect.
so I think, they look at their struggles as like, oh, this is terrible. But I'm like, no, this is an opportunity for growth and for you to really figure out who you really are and what you really want for yourself. And I always have clients I reflect back their strengths to them and I ask them to name their strengths because they don't know what their strengths are.
Mhm.
And so I think their knowing what makes me as strong as I am is such an important tool. And it's something that's not just going to get them through college, it's going to get them through life
Mhm.
because they just don't know how strong they are.
Mhm.
Um, and if I had to offer a piece of advice too, I am just all for if people are able to do it, to study abroad and to just put themselves into a totally different context and just see what kind of person emerges from that. Because I think that is such a great way to get in touch with who they really are. And I'm a big proponent of gap years too. You know, instead of just going straight into a job, to really take a year and explore who they are and what they really want. Because I see students who ended up just kind of getting pushed into a job and they don't even really want to do it, but they feel like that's what they should do. And so I think if they just take that time to really explore and go deep, I think it really serves them well into determining their future course and what's really true for them. Um, so those are just three pieces of advice. It's like know that you're not alone, know that you're stronger than you think you are. No mud, no lotus, and you are in bloom. Might not feel that way. And that's just really taking the time to explore who you are outside of, you know, your context of the family you grew up in or the context of being on a college campus. Um, and just knowing that they are the hope for the future too.
You are just so eloquent and just they're so fortunate to have you. So fortunate. And I just everything you've said, even though we may not practice the same, religion, you are so completely in tune with life itself and the future and everything. It's just so beautiful listening to you. And unfortunately, I'm looking at the clock and it's counting down, so we don't have too much time left, but we have about 5 minutes. Is there anything you want to add, or should we wrap up? What do you think?
I just think that we need to give our young people as much love and support as we can because it
Absolutely.
really is a whole different ball game. You know, the challenges that they're facing are so frightening. We as adults are having a hard time handling present day circumstances.
Mhm.
Um, so I think sometimes people just write off young people. It's like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. They haven't had experience. They've had deep experience, even by
Absolutely.
the time they're 18.
Yes.
Um, and I think that we just really need to respect them and listen to them and take them seriously and love them.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yes. And you have so much love in your heart, really so much. I'm just so privileged to, have you as a friend over the many years and for Carla to meet you
Here,
now. And so we always end with a little encouraging words. But don't forget that we are Don't
Don't
Mess
mess
with
with
the
the
Mamas,
mamas.
MOMMAS, and we are here with Karen Richardson Dunn, who's a well-being counselor and environmental activist and everything in the world. She's just continues to evolve to just amazing strengths and visions for the future. You can find us anywhere you hear your podcast or see uh, your podcast. And to end, and since Karen is also a brilliant editor, I found something on reading I wanted to share because reading is so important today. People aren't reading enough. So if that's okay, just to share it. Reading is dialogue with oneself. It is self-reflection which cultivates profound humanity. Reading is therefore essential for our development. It expands and enriches the personality like a seed that germinates after a long time and sends forth many blossom-laden branches. People who can say of a book, "This changed my life," truly understand the meaning of happiness. Reading that sparks inner revolution is desperately needed to escape drowning in the rapidly advancing information society. Reading is more than intellectual ornamentation. It is the battle for the establishment of the self, a ceaseless challenge that keeps us young and vigorous. So, you know,
Amen.
amen, right?
Yeah,
Amen.
with you.
So once again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
We really, really appreciate it so much and see you really soon. Bye
Bye-bye.
bye. Bye bye. Thank you again. Thanks. Bye bye.
Thank you.